Hello and welcome to the program UFO Warning. In this episode, we're talking about alien bodies. That's correct, alien bodies. Something I don't get into a lot because it pretty much just involves speculation. But there's been so much news about it lately that I felt like it'd be important to kind of cover it a little bit. I found this article over on FoxNews.com. It says UFO Insider claims U.S. has bodies of 4 different alien species from downed spacecraft in government custody. And the subtitle says Dr. Hal Puthoff made the claims on a podcast alongside Agent Disclosure Director Dan Farah, written by Julia Bonavita, Fox News, dated May 25th, 2026. Now, I got to say, I've got some reservations. I mean, Hal Puthoff, he's definitely OG. He must be like 90 or something. We'll look him up here in just a minute. He's been around for a really long time, and I mean, yeah, when they say insider, they're not kidding. I mean, he's like on the inside of the inside, so just be aware of that. Now, it says new claims that the United States has removed remains of 4 separate species of alien life are sending shockwaves throughout the UFO disclosure movement, further drumming up conversations surrounding the government's knowledge of otherworldly life. Dr. Hal Puthoff, a CIA-funded researcher and former Advanced Aerospace Weapon System Applications Program advisor, and these guys are they're always around, man, like a moth to the flame, it seems, announced a new revelation while appearing at a UFO roundtable on Steve Bartlett's The Diary of a CEO podcast alongside Agent Disclosure Director Dan Farah last week. Given the level of quality of their technology, if they didn't want to be seen, we wouldn't be seeing them, Puthoff said on the podcast. So it seems like, I would say, there's evidence that for whatever reason, they're wanting to be seen. He's got a point. Man, I'm just thinking to myself, if there's bodies, then these things are real physical things as opposed to being some sort of interdimensional or spiritual creature. Puthoff went on to claim that federal officials have recovered 4 separate types of extraterrestrial life from various UFOs. People who have been involved in recoveries have said there are at least 4 types, 4 separate types, Puthoff said. Now, I have not had direct access to that, but I believe the people who I talked to, 4 separate types of life. So what we're getting here is, once again, secondhand information. I'm thinking maybe like that scene in Men in Black where they walk in the room, they've got all those different kinds of alien critters in there. While Puthoff did not elaborate on the specific types of suspected alien species, his former AAWSAP colleague, Dr. Eric Davis, this is another OG, previously revealed they included Nordics, Greys, insectoids, and reptilians, according to the New York Post. Citing intelligence reports last year, Davis reportedly claimed that each of the biological life forms pulled from supposed UFO wreckage is similar to humans in appearance, since they possess 2 arms and a pair of legs. Now, that could also be that way because it's just the way that makes the most sense, I guess. Depending upon the UFO researchers that I've talked to, they talk about there being many variations on those 4 forms. I have also heard that there are amphibian-style UFOs or aliens. So, yes, there are claims that there are many different species visiting us. Kent Heckenlively, author of Catastrophic Disclosure, told Fox News Digital. Of the 4 alien species to have been previously recorded by the U.S. officials, the Nordics bear the most similar resemblance to humans, with Greys often believed to consist of small, massive-eyed, hairless creatures, the Post reported. The most commonly described aliens are the Greys, and there's been a lot of discussion about whether they are essentially the designed beings for our world. They seem to have the easiest time moving around, and they're the most commonly cited aliens, Heckenlively said. People, a lot of times, who have had interactions with these Greys almost talk about these things as being like robotic, as if they don't demonstrate any kind of human empathy. The fourth species, insectoids, reportedly resemble a praying mantis and are bug-like beings. Now, a lot of the stories that I've read with these insectoids kind of describe these as being the most nasty. The insectoids seem to be rarely seen, Heckin' Lively added, but when they are described by people, they are often described as the beings in charge, which is a little bit terrifying to me. Imagine that, especially if you're strapped down to a table and they're having their way with you, huh? The latest revelation comes amid a push from President Donald Trump's administration to increase transparency regarding UAP discoveries, with the second batch of UFO documents being released by the Pentagon on Friday. Yeah, I think this is from last week, so we've seen that. Some interesting stuff, but no huge surprises from what I can tell so far. While experts within the field often welcome the new sense of clarity within government agencies, Heckin' Lively insists that the American people deserve to be given evidence surrounding the discoveries. Well, how about you just give us some of the files that you've already given to the Black Vault, but don't black them out this time. Top Dem applauds Trump UFO files released in rare show of support. It says, "The thing I always say is it's hard to tell just a little bit of the truth," Heckin' Lively said. "Once you start telling the truth, you've got to tell it all." So I really think that the Trump administration has shown that they are interested in getting the truth out. I think some of the releases have been truly remarkable. Yeah, but then we have people like Congressman Tim Burchard talking about threats that he feels like are being made possibly to Trump about even releasing this stuff. So, I mean, I don't know. Now it says, in 2023, former Air Force intelligence officer and UAP task force member David Grush provided congressional testimony claiming that the federal government possessed non-human biologics pulled from dozens of downed UFOs, the New York Post reported. Man, that's an awful lot of craft to cover up. I don't know, man. Grush's claims reportedly stem from Farrow's documentary, Age of Disclosure, in which individuals involved in the alleged crash retrieval program provided information surrounding the discoveries. A number of the people I interviewed in my film, senior intelligence officials, went on their record saying that there have been dozens of crash craft of non-human origin over the years, Farrow said on Jesse Watters Primetime. Elements of our government have recovered those crashes, and they've gotten out that technology of non-human origin, and in some cases, non-human bodies that were on these craft, Farrow said. While questions continue to swirl regarding the possibility of biological life forms being in possession of the federal government, Heckin' Lively is offering a stark warning surrounding the reality of aliens and humans coming into contact with each other. I would think these things could have some kind of disease that could wipe us all out. I mean, I don't know. He says it may not be that these aliens are demons, but maybe they have fundamentally different ways of approaching the world that we would find objectionable, Heckin' Lively told Fox News Digital, adding, maybe there are good reasons to stay apart from each other. Maybe they have just figured out there would be such inevitable clashes that we have such different views of morality that any contact should be extremely limited. Well, I don't know, coming and grabbing somebody out of their bed in the middle of the night, taking them on board a craft and probing them doesn't seem like the nicest thing to me. I mean, a lot of these reports show these things have a complete lack of empathy. And if they have all this technology, well, they sure haven't given us a cure to cancer. Going back a little bit to this article, let's just take a look at who Hal Puthoff is. Now, when I ask AI about Hal Puthoff, it says Harold Edward, or Hal Puthoff, that's Puthoff, was born on June 20th, 1936 in Chicago, Illinois. That would make him 89 years old as of June 2026. Now, he's got experience in laser physics. He worked at SRI International, part of the remote viewing studies associated with Stargate program, research into zero-point energy and advanced propulsion concepts. advisory roles in modern UAP, what we would call UFO investigations and disclosure discussions. It goes on, it says, Harold Hal Puthoff is an American electrical engineer, physicist, and parapsychology researcher who has become one of the most influential and controversial figures in the UFO UAP research, remote viewing, and studies in speculative advanced propulsion concepts. Now, I can remember my old professor at the University of Psychology. This has been decades ago, but he told us then, he said, if you ever hear the term parapsychology, just remember that the word para means fake. Did not have a lot of respect, if any, for the field of parapsychology. Of course, he was a physicist by trade, and hardcore psychology also didn't have any use for Freud, which I learned to respect that opinion. Harold E. Puthoff earned a PhD in electrical engineering from Stanford University in 1967, specializing in laser physics. During his career, he worked with organizations including the NSA, SRI International, and later founded both EarthTech International and the Institute for Advanced Studies at Austin. That's kind of, I think, where his home base is at, down there in Austin. I'm thinking about a story a few years ago where they might have been involved with some sort of metamaterials Tom DeLonge had or something. I'd have to look that back up. But man, this guy, he's 89 years old and just, he's been at it, whatever. Remote viewing and Stargate program. Puthoff is best known for helping establish the remote viewing research program at SRI in the 1970s. This research, funded at various times by the U.S. intelligence agencies, investigated claims that certain individuals could obtain information about distant locations or events using psychic abilities. The work eventually became associated with programs such as SCANATE, SCANATE, and later the Stargate Project. Supporters view his work as pioneering consciousness research. Critics argue that the experimental controls were insufficient and that the evidence never demonstrated psychic abilities to maintain scientific standards. Now, this is something you run into over and over in these experiments where they're trying to delve into mind reading and all this kind of stuff. UFO UAP research. Puthoff has been involved in UFO research for decades and is connected to many prominent figures in the modern UAP discussion. He has served as an advisor to the government-related UAP investigations and has been associated with organizations studying unidentified aerial phenomena. He has also spoken publicly about theories regarding advanced propulsion, possible non-human intelligence, and the scientific investigation of UAP reports. If you've been following the UFO stuff for very long, you've probably seen how on a YouTube video, on a television program, in a movie, something. This guy's, he's, like I said, he's OG, original gangster. Advanced physics and propulsion theories. Another major source of Puthoff's work is the quantum vacuum, often called zero-point energy. His research has explored ideas such as vacuum energy extraction, warp drive concepts, manipulations of space-time metrics, advanced propulsion systems, alternative approaches to gravitation and inertia. Some of his theoretical work has been published through academic channels and conference proceedings. However, these ideas remain speculative and may not produce experimentally verified propulsion technologies. You got to think the things he's talking about would require such a high level of technical difficulty. Maybe power, the lab that you would need would be incredible. So I can imagine that the funding would have to be massive to even test some of these theories he's come up with, if you could even. It says, role in modern UFO disclosure discussions. Within UFO circles, Puthoff is often regarded as one of the central scientific figures connecting intelligence agencies, defense contractors, advanced aerospace concepts, and UAP investigations. He has worked alongside or been associated with figures such as Jacques Vallée, Eric Davis, Luis Elizondo, and Tom DeLonge in various UAP-related fields. I'm a little reluctant to put Elizondo and even Tom, as much as I've kind of started to respect him a little bit, into the same category as Hal and Davis and Jacques Vallée. I mean, you got to admit that Hal Puthoff is a certified physicist. I mean, he's a smart guy. Let's just be honest. Puthoff's reputation depends heavily on whom you ask. Supporters say he is a credentialed physicist with decades of government and scientific experience. He has investigated unconventional topics others would not touch. He has contributed serious theoretical work on advanced propulsion and UAP science. And critics say his remote viewing research never met mainstream scientific standards, that he endorsed claims involving psychic phenomena and figures such as Uri Geller that many scientists consider debunked. Yeah, Uri Geller, not so big on that guy. I have to be honest with you. From what I've seen, when people take really critical looks at his work, some of his UFO and propulsion hypotheses are viewed as speculative and lacking empirical support. One of the guys I watch on YouTube, he interviews regularly a retired banker, and he was talking about how it must have been back in the 70s. I guess they were at a conference or something, and somebody had brought Uri Geller in, and he was supposed to bend the spoons and stuff. I don't know. I suppose they were going to use that as some sort of a promotion or incentive for these highly skilled and intelligent bankers to, I don't know, raise more money on their deals. And he laughed it off as a complete joke. Yeah, I could see that. And I'm thinking of my old university professor, and those guys, they were all about doing their work within the confines of a lab. They didn't have the time of day for any speculation into stuff that Geller was doing or anything that was outside of the scientific method. And they were just disciplined, and that's how they lived their lives. And I remember one time I asked him about inherited memory. He says, "Oh no, we're not talking about that." I mean, they had their stuff they were working on, and they confined their research to that little thing. So when you get with these guys that are looking at the big picture, they can be pretty smart, and I'm sure Hal Puthoff is, but once they get outside that scientific method, once they get outside that sandbox that these guys are used to operating in, a lot of the old school researchers don't want anything to do with them. I'm just telling you how it is. Among UFO researchers, Hal Puthoff is often considered one of the most important behind-the-scenes figures in the history of U.S. government interest in anomalous phenomena. Whether one views him as a visionary scientist exploring frontier questions or as a researcher who pursued ideas outside mainstream evidence standards, his influence on remote viewing, UAP studies, and advanced propulsion discussion is difficult to overstate. He has been on a lot of stuff. I mean, that's a pretty good overview of Hal Puthoff, I think. It doesn't include in there that he was big time into Scientology for a while. I think he was supposed to have gone through all the levels. There again, if you get into the hardcore scientific look at things, well, not only are most of those guys agnostic, if not outright atheist, they don't really take the Bible literally, but they certainly don't take Scientology literally. That's kind of another thing that's a little weird to me. I look at Hal and I think, well, it's interesting, I guess, that he's talking to people, bringing some of these ideas out there, but can I take anything he says literally when, by his own admission, it's all secondhand? I don't know. At the same time, I'm not taking anything away from him as a scientist. I'm sure his IQ's probably double mine. I mean, he's one of the smartest guys out there, and 89 years old, he's still out there visiting with people. Now let's go ahead and take a look at another one of these reports on these alien creatures. Really weird stuff. So I want to finish up here. I was doing a little research on these different types of alien creatures, say. We're talking physical creatures now, right? And first off, there's just a lot of repetitive stuff out there, like this last interview with Puthoff and Farah. It's just been regurgitated by 1,000 different sites or something. It's just blasting the internet. But I did look around a little bit, and I found a paper over at the NSA.gov talking about this crazy stuff. So I wanted to run it through AI, which I finally did get done, but the first 3 or 4 times I tried to get it on ChatGPT, crashed my screen. And then I tried it on 2 different Twitter accounts, crashed both those. Yeah, weird stuff, huh? Finally, I went back again with ChatGPT, and I asked it to go ahead and just summarize the article, and it did. Weird stuff, man. It says the NSA document, Communication with Extraterrestrial Intelligence, was written by cryptologist Lambros D. Kalimahas and originally appeared in the NSA's Cryptologic Spectrum Journal. It is not evidence that the NSA was communicating with aliens. Rather, it is a theoretical exercise exploring how humanity might recognize, decode, and respond to a message from an extraterrestrial civilization. Yeah, these things don't exist, but they're getting ready for them anyway, huh? Main themes: the probability of extraterrestrial life. Kalimahas begins by arguing that intelligent life elsewhere in the universe is statistically plausible. He cites astronomers and scientists who believed that given the vast number of stars and planets, some extraterrestrial civilizations likely exist. Communication is a cryptography problem. And that's a thought. How are you going to communicate with these things? The central idea is that first contact would be less a linguistic challenge and more a cryptoanalytic challenge. Instead of traditional cryptography, which hides information, Kalimahas discusses what he calls inverse cryptography, creating messages that are as easy as possible for an unknown recipient to understand. The sender would need to build a common language from basic universal concepts. That's a thought. Kind of like when they put that disc on the Voyager, with the pictures of humans and stuff. Mathematics is a universal language. The paper assumes that mathematics would be the best starting point for communication because mathematical truths could be the same anywhere in the universe. Hypothetical alien message starts by teaching numbers, arithmetic, mathematical relationships, geometry, and logic. Once these concepts are established, more complex information can be conveyed. A simulated alien message. Much of the document consists of a fictional encoded transmission, supposedly received from another civilization. The message gradually teaches the recipient a numbering system, mathematical symbols, scientific concepts, physical measurements, information about the sender's solar system, and biological information about the alien species. The reader is challenged to decipher the message using logic and pattern recognition. 5. The hydrogen frequency. The article discusses the importance of the 21 centimeter hydrogen line, or 1420 megahertz, a frequency long considered by SETI researchers to be a logical universal radio frequency because hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe. An advanced civilization might choose this frequency for interstellar communication. Man, they're thinking this stuff through. Don't kid yourself. This is what the document does not say. The document does not claim the NSA has received alien messages or the U.S. government is in contact with extraterrestrials. UFOs are extraterrestrial spacecraft, or any real extraterrestrial signal has been decoded. It is a thought experiment written by a professional cryptologist about how communication with an unknown intelligence might work. Multiple discussions of the document note that it was intended as a cryptographic exercise and puzzle rather than a report of actual context. Wow. It says, as a one-sentence summary, the NSA paper is a fascinating Cold War era cryptographic thought experiment that explores how humans and extraterrestrials might establish a common language using mathematics, logic, and science, but it contains no evidence that alien communications were ever received. So while they're telling you that they believe there's 4 of these different types of aliens, at least, maybe a lot more, on the inside, they're working out ways to communicate with them. That's what I see. Really strange stuff, folks. Anyway, if you like the program, don't forget to hit like, follow, subscribe. Doesn't cost a dime. As always, thanks to the folks who support the program financially. It all helps. Until next time, this is UFO Warning. Over and out.